Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and today is day 24 of our 100 days of DevOps, and we started looking at containerization and CI/CD 2 days ago. That's from day 22. So you can, if you've not seen those previous videos, please do well to see them before coming to day 4, because like I always say, whatever we do is basically built on the foundations or what we've learned in the previous day. So it's a step-by-step thing, and you'll be missing out a great deal if you skip any phase or if you skip any step. So we started on day 22, which was the second phase of our journey, and where we got introduced to Docker. We got introduced to containerization. Basically, we saw Docker lifecycle. We also considered the architecture of Docker. While yesterday, which is day 23, we looked at running and managing Docker containers, where we explored close to about 10 commands on how to run containers, how to manage containers, basically everything you need to know, most of the commands that you need to know when it comes to managing containers. So we're going to continue in that progression, and today we are going to be looking at what we call Docker files, and we're going to be writing our first Docker file today. So first off, what is Docker file? So basically, Docker file is just like a set of instructions that you give to your Docker daemon to execute and then use to create an image. So that's basically how it works. Like I explained that Docker daemon is the one that is responsible for executing your instructions. Thus, it provides the Docker client with an API which the client uses to communicate with it, and then whatever instruction is sent to it, that's what it uses to actually it acts on it. So it's a set of instruction which the Docker daemon uses to create an image, which you can now run as a container. Basically, that is just what a Docker file is. So from here, so Docker builds images by reading the instructions from a Docker file. A Docker file is a text file containing instructions for building your source code. So basically, it's just a bunch of instructions, like you're telling your engine what to do. So it follows the instruction line by line and executes every command. So instead of running those commands one after the other, you just package the commands in a file and then give it to your Docker daemon to actually run, and it executes everything. So, and the syntax for is you have your instruction and then you have your argument. Basically, these are all of the instructions that you can find. This is I'm taking this off the Docker page. So we have the add and what it does. So add adds a local or remote file or directory. You can see the copy command. It copies files and directory, the environments and all of that. So you can see from creates a new image from a base image, and you can just go to the Docker page. It's docs.docker.com. So you can see what all of these instructions are. So you can see what all of these instructions are, and then you can apply them. So basically, that is just the syntax. You have your instruction, and then your arguments can be whatever command you want to actually need the Docker daemon to execute for you. So now that we have that out of the way, I'm going to go straight to the terminal. This is basically going to be very, very practical. We'll see how it works in real time. Then we'll try to do a small demo. Just a small demo, just to see further solidify what we are going to learn, and then we call it a day for today, and then tomorrow we go again. So I'm going to start with basically when you want to write a Docker file. Okay, let me start by first creating a Docker file. So who am I? So Vetrax, in directory. So I'm in my home. So he said it starts by creating what we call a Docker file. So we have to touch is the command to create a Docker file, to create a file. So that's how you create it, just the word Docker file. It does not have an extension. It does not have like .txt or .sh like other files. Basically, it's just as the name sounds, Docker file with a capital D. So when you do that and I do ls, I can see that my Docker file is there. So let's vim into our Dockerfile. So basically, the first thing that you want to have in a Dockerfile is whatever image you want to build is basically gotten from another image. Whatever application and all of that is usually gotten from a base image. Basically, a base image is like the foundation on which everything is built on. That's basically what a base image is. So let's say if we search, I think that was previous day or the first day, when you search Docker Hub, you can see a bunch of images. All of these are basically base images which can be used to actually build your Docker on. You understand? So we have a bunch. So I'm going to pick, let's go with Alpine. Alpine is basically like a lightweight image. You can see it's a minimal Docker image based on Alpine with a complete package index, only 5 MB in size and all of that. So let's work with an Alpine image. And what is the instruction for using a base image? If we come back here, you can see that the from create a new build from a base image. So the first thing we have to do in your Docker image in your Dockerfile is to define the base image, which you start from. So that's where you start from. That's where everything kickstarts from. And then you can go back and we go back to the image. We want to use the Alpine image. We can copy it and we can just come here and paste it, and you can define the particular version you want to use also. So we can let's just say let's use 3.22. Okay, 3.22.1. So we go back and do 3.22.1. So basically that's how you define an image for your Dockerfile. So if we create this and we do ls, then we use the command. When I was talking about the Docker architecture, we explored so many commands, several commands, and I told you there was one command. I think one command was left for us to explore, which is the Docker build. So we are going to use the Docker build now, which will be used to build an image. But let's see. So we have two images on our host. We have the hello world, we have the Ubuntu image. So let's build a new image. Docker build -t. -t basically is you are tagging the image. So what do we tag the image as? Let's say let's tag it as my image. That's the name that we are giving to this particular image, and you end with a dot. This dot basically specifies the location of where your Docker file is. My Docker file is on this particular directory. That's why I can use a dot. If your Docker file is in a different directory, you define the path. And I remember when we studied our Linux part, I covered the absolute path and the relative path. So if you don't really understand this, you can go back. And that's why I said whatever we learn is built on what we've learned previously. So you can define it, and it has to be an absolute path. When your Docker file is in a different location and you want to create a Docker image, you need to define, though most times it's advisable for you to be in that folder where your Docker file is. But for some reasons, if you're not there, you can define where that image is. You can say /home/home/vertrax. So this can still work because my Docker file is actually in this particular directory. So you can do that, or you can just use a dot. A dot just signifies that check the Docker file in this particular folder. So that's basically what it does. So when you click on this, so it builds the image, and it's going to take a few seconds for the image to get built because it has to connect with the Docker host and then bring that image into your system or your VM or whatever you're using. So it's going to take a while and it's going to build the image. So now my image is built. So if I do Docker images, you can see that I have my image now. And for us to confirm that we're using an Alpine image, for you to view the version of your OS that is actually working on your VM, we'll do /etc/os-release. So this basically tells you what operating system you are using. This is Ubuntu and all of that. So in the same way, I can do that. I can do Docker run my image, and I can do cat /etc/os-release. So let's see if it's going to work. So you can see that it's bringing us Alpine Linux. That's we did cat etc/os release on the image that we just created, just to confirm the version of the image that we created, which we used as the base image. So this is to confirm to us that we used the Alpine image as the base image. So whatever we do going forward will be built on this particular image. So that's that. Another command that we are going to be building this Dockerfile little by little. Another command we are going to explore is your working directory. Let me vim Dockerfile. So we want to create an environment in which all of your command, all of the subsequent commands will be executed on. So, and that is, from what I have here, that is the working directory. So basically it just takes your working directory to the one that you define. So before now, if I do, let me get this away. So if I do Docker run and I do present working directory, you can see that it's running on the root. So, but if I should vim Dockerfile and I want to change the working directory, so let's say I work directory and I put /app. I want that to be my working directory. So whatever thing that Docker will be doing will be in this working directory. Now, this command does two things. If the directory does not exist, it creates directory and it changes to that directory. So whatever commands you run subsequently will be on this particular directory. So let's go back. Let's go, let's do ls. So you can see all of the directories in the image that we just built, and there's no directory called /app. So by the time we run docker build, we are going to build the image again. For every change you make in your Dockerfile, you have to build the image again. So when I do that, it's going to build the image and it's going to, you can see it has set a working directory called /app. So when I do, let me clear this. When I do Docker run and I do ls, Docker run my image ls, let me see, Docker images. Oh, okay. Docker run my image. We'll see present working directory. Okay, so you can see that it has changed from the root and it's now in /app. That's because we've defined it in our Dockerfile. So whatever thing that you're doing, you can always check to confirm that what you're doing is actually, taking effect. So all of these commands here, all of these instructions here, they are just there as a reference. You don't need to have all of them in your head. You're not going to probably work with all of them at a time. So, but whenever you need to work on any one, you just get it and then use it. I'm just going to be covering the most common ones that we actually run. So that is done. The next command that I'm going to introduce us to is the run command. the run, I call it a command or an instruction. So the next instruction we'll cover is run. So basically, this run is actually to execute a command. Whenever you want to execute a command with your Dockerfile, you use the instruction run. So this run, it executes any command that you add afterwards. If we go back to our reference, let's look for run. We look for execute build commands. So whatever command that you actually put, if you want to run any command, you have to use the instruction run. So what can we run? This is an Alpine image. So let's install curl. So a command is apk add curl. So that's the command. So we do this, then we build the image again. Build the image, and then we'll see basically to show you all the progress of the things that you're doing. So you can see now, before it was 2/2, now it's 3/3. So it's running that command apk add curl, and it's trying to install the command that you've actually specified for it to actually install. So that's the run command. Basically, it's to execute command. So another one we can explore, let's see. So let's look at user. So let's look at user. So basically, user just sets a user for your application. If I do docker run image and I do who am I, it's going to show you that you are root. Basically, the default is the root to be the user. But in most times you'll be required to use a non-privileged user in order to run your application. So a lot of times you'll be required in your Dockerfile to change the user of that particular application from the root to a different user. And that's why I'm covering this user, because we are going to be using it a lot of times. Like I said, I'm going to cover the instructions that we'll be using prominently. So if I vim my Dockerfile, so we can do user, and which user can we use? Let's use the command, or let's use Vertrax, and let's save it, and then we're going to build again. And when we do that, you would see let's run the command to confirm if the user is. So you can see now that it's giving an error. So it says no matching entries in the password file. What this basically means is that for Docker to be able, for your application to be able to declare a user, the user must have been created in your application. So this particular user, this Vertrax user, if I do, so that it doesn't complicate things, usually the command to check for user is password. So when, cat. It's not, well, the command to check for users is cat/etc/password. You understand? So if a user has not been created, you can't change or you can't switch to that particular user. So we omitted something in our Dockerfile, which is actually to add a user. So, and for us to add a user, we have to use the run command. So we have to add this before the user command, because Docker executes this step by step. It starts from the first thing you declare and it goes step by step. So if you are switching to the user before you create the user, it's not going to work. So we're going to have another run command, and we need to give it a command to add a user. So we're going to use add user -d, and we need to add the user first. Then with this, we can now switch to the user. So let's be sure that what we did is actually correct. So let's build the image again, and let's see if we're going to get a different output this time. So you can see now that it is adding the user. So run add user -d and all of that. So when I do docker run my image and I do who am I, so you can see that it has changed from root to Vertrax. So basically, it's Docker, creating a Dockerfile is just writing a set of instructions. There's no much of a big deal about it. It's just normal instructions that you're going to run on your terminal. You just package it into a file and then you give your Docker engine to actually run. So that's just it. And I'm going to show you a quick demo right now. So there are a bunch of other instructions. You can go here, you can check, you can see volume, you can see expose when you want to expose a port, you can see an entry point, you can see CMD and all of that, health check, labels, and just a whole bunch. And we can't actually cover everything in one particular session. We're just going to use the ones that matter to us, and as time goes on, the more we go forward, the more we progress, we are going to be using a lot of on this now. So we're going to run a quick demo, and I'm just going to clear this, and let's make a folder. NK dir, let's say node app. So we're going to run a node app step by step manually on our virtual machine, and then we'll see how that translates to Dockerizing the app. So let's cd into our node app. So nothing is there. Let's go for, I have the file here. It's a simple app that just prints, welcome to your first node app. So that's what it does, and I'll save it as app.py. So I'm going to just paste this here. And in our session on Nginx, we saw that the command to actually run a node app is node and then the name of the name we've given to the server. So the name we've given to the application. So but before then, we're going to do two other things. We are going to initialize the application. Basically, we just want to download some npm packages. Once we run npm init-y, it creates a package.json file, which is just basically contains the metadata of what is there. So let's run npm init-y and let's wait for the outcome. So it has created a package.json file. When we do ls, we can see now, apart from the app.py, we have a package.json file, and we have just basically just contains metadata and all of that. So then we can go ahead and do npm install just to try and see if there are any dependencies that we are installing. So please take note of what we are doing. Take note of the steps we are doing. We created the file, then we ran npm init just to create the package.json file, and then we are running npm install. So it's step by step. We're going to see how we'll translate all of this to down to our Docker file. So if we do ls, you can see that apart from that, it created a package -lock.json file also, and we can do node app dot. Did I put app.py? No, it's app.js. So I need to rename this. Okay. So when I do ls, I have app.js. So we run the command which we ran on during the time that we did when we were talking about Nginx. So app.js. So when we run it, you'll see that server running on port 3000. So let's go and check port 3000. Let's go to our browser. I will do, this is 36 and port 3000. So when you do it, you see, hello DevOps Explorer, welcome to your first Node.js app. So basically, we've been able to run the application and we've done it manually. Successfully, it's working. So now, how do we Dockerize this application? So when I do ls, I have all of this here. Remember that the first thing we do is to create a Docker file, and we have to create a Docker file in that folder which you want, which your application is. So we're going to let's create a Docker file. Okay, so the first thing, since we are using since it's a Node.js application, we need to get our base image from Node. So we can come back here and we can okay, let's go back to our Docker hub and let's look for Node. So let's look for the Node official image, and we're going to use Node. We'll look for a version that is not too heavy. Let's just go with 24-Alpine 22. Okay, so let me copy this. Let's go. So I'm going to do from Node. Remember, you have to do an hyphen before you put the version. So we already have our base image. So what do we do next? We set our working directory and let's set it to /app, because now what it does is that it creates this directory and it see this into this directory. So whatever thing we do afterwards will be done in this particular directory. So what did we do next? What we did next was that we created a package.json file. So we're going to copy JSON file, and then where are we copying it to? We're copying it to dot. We are using dot because we've already switched to this /app directory. So if we use dot, we are saying copy the package.json file into this particular directory. So it copies your package.json file, the one that we've created already on our VM, and then it copies it to this particular /app directory. And then after that, what did we do? We executed a command called npm install. So you can see that basically it's like we're just redefining the steps that we did before. So after that, what did we do? We are going to copy, apart from package.json, we have other files that is there. So we want to copy the rest of the files. So we are copying dot to dot. What this means is that we are copying the entire thing in this particular directory into this app also. So dot means that you're copying everything in your, that the Dockerfile we created is in a particular folder. So we're copying everything in that folder into the app folder. That's basically what we are doing. Now in our source code, the port that we exposed, if I can go back, you can see that we defined a port of port 3000, which is our environmental variable. So what we do is that we're going to learn a new command, which is the env instruction. And basically what the env does is that it just basically sets environmental variable. So it sets environmental variable. So this is the environmental variable that will be in our container. And that's why we have the container port and we have the host port. This is what we can map our host port to. So basically, let's set the environmental variable to port is equals to 3000. So that's the you can set different environmental variables. So the environmental variable we are setting now is just for the port. So we are setting a port of 3000. And then the last command that we are going to know is the cmd. Basically, let's go back and let's see. So this is the default command that we are going to use to run the application. Basically, we have two commands. We can say the cmd is specific default commands. Entry point is specific default executable. Tomorrow, we are going to look at the difference between the cmd and the entry point. There are some Docker files that you see that has cmd. There are some Docker files that you see that has entry point. There are some Docker files that you see that has both cmd and entry point. So we are going to dive deep. We're going to see the difference between the cmd, the entry point, and when to use either of them, and also when to use both of them. So basically, we want to execute the command. What command did we use to run our application? We used node and then the name of the file. So what I'm going to do is that if you want to use cmd, first of all, you put it in bracket, you give a space, you put the first command, node, and you separate it with a comma, app.js. So you close it. So this is the command. So basically we are defining the command. We used to do node app.js when we're trying to run the command, but when you're defining it in the Dockerfile, you have to declare it in this form. You put it in square bracket, and then you use quotation marks for each of the commands. So with that, we've basically done all the things that we did. So basically we just rewrote our normal instructions, the normal commands that we ran on our terminal. We just rewrote it into a Dockerfile. So let's see if we have it all figured out. So we can do let's build our image, docker build -t. Let's give it a name, my node image. Okay, let's very, very terrible with names. So let's do node image, and then where is that Dockerfile residing on this particular folder. So we are going to use the dot. So let's see what comes out of it, and it's going to build everything. Going to take a while, so I'll probably pause this video and I'll be back once it's done building. All right, so our image is successfully built. So when I do, so you can see all of the commands from, we defined a library, Node.js, and all of that. So it went to the Docker hub and got the image. We defined 24/alpine 3.21. He went for that. And the second thing we did was that we declared a working directory. You can see that there. It copied package.json. So basically all of our information were actually done step by step. So when I do Docker images, so you can see node image and the tag is latest. If you don't define a specific tag when trying to build a Docker image, Docker just gives it a default tag of latest, and it was built 44 seconds ago. So let's run our image. Sorry, Docker images. I need to get the name of the image. So let's do Docker run. I'm not going to run this on the background. I'll run it actively, but I'm going to map it to a port. I want to map it to the port that we defined is port 3000. So let's map 3005 to, that's on our host machine, to port 3000. That's on the image. So and then we'll put the name of our image. So let's run it, and we're supposed to get that same response we got, server running on port 3000. So by the time we go here and let's see, 192. So if we do port 3000, let's see if it's going to work. So you can see that it didn't work, but let's change it to 3005. So you can see that the 3005 is working. So that shows you that even though it is showing you that the server is running on port 3000, you already mapped this container port to port 3005. So do not make the mistake of saying because it's showing you that the server is running on port 3000, you will now go and be checking for port 3000 on your browser. You've already mapped it to 3005. So, and that's why I specifically did not use the same port, because if I use the same port, I could map it to the same 3000, and you might have the feeling that it's the same, it's whatever it shows here that you actually go and check on your local PC. So, but you just have to understand that whatever port you've mapped to it, that's your host port. This is the container port. So please always have that in mind. Your host port is always on the left. That's the one you want to map your image to, while your container port is on the right, which is the port that has been defined in your image when you're building your image. For Python images, basically, I think it's usually port 5000. So and all of that. So with time, we're going to explore more things. Today, we've seen how to write a Docker file. We've seen that writing a Docker file is not a big deal. It's not complex. It's basically just giving a set of instructions that you would have done on a normal day. Since we are still in the world of automation, you're trying to automate the way things are done. And this is another form of automating and also packaging your images. So like I said, tomorrow, we are going to consider what we call, let me cut Dockerfile and, cut Dockerfile. So as this Dockerfile now, this is a simple Dockerfile. It's also what we call single stage Dockerfile. So we have single stage, we have multi-stage. So I'm also going to be covering what we call multi-stage Dockerfile tomorrow, and we'll see how we can run this application in a multi-stage way. We'll see the advantage of having a multi-stage build in contrast to a single stage. And also we are going to look at the difference between CMD and entry point. So I really hope that you've learned a thing or two about how to write Dockerfile. You can go to the Docker documentation, basically docs.docker.com. You'll see all of this. You can, try your hands out, get your hands dirty, and understand better what all of these instructions are. You can also go to this place. You'll see some applications that you can just try your hands on and, get a feel of how everything is. I'm going to see you tomorrow. So have a wonderful day. Cheers.